So, beautiful beings, knowing what we know about the systemic disruptors hijacking our rhythm, the ultimate question remains. How do we actually reclaim our biological authority? How do we stop playing defense and start living in absolute unapologetic alignment with our inner seasons? First, let's draw a hard line in the sand. We refuse to settle for synthetic hormonal patches or chemical band aids that simply flatline our endogenous production, mask the underlying root causes, and deny us our seasons entirely. Now, your natural cycle isn't a design flaw to be turned off. It is a vital sign. Instead of suppressing it, we choose to build an active, intentional, daily, holistic infrastructure. We treat our lifestyle as our primary clinical intervention.
They been cramping my style all week. Craving chocolate treats, checking pants, checking seeds, sipping herbal tea, and fight for menstrual equity. Jeez, hey, I kick Cramp's ass. 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 You're now tuned in to the Kick Cramp's Ass podcast with your host, Brittany Walker, advocating for menstrual equity, period poverty, and womb wellness. New episodes on Menstruation Mondays.
Happy Menstruation Monday, and welcome back to the Kick Cramp's Ass podcast, the space where we treat language as a clinical weapon and biological data as our absolute currency. I am your host, Brittany Walker, and today is July 13th, and we are diving head first into one of the most liberating frameworks in health psychology and behavioral physiology, the inner seasons of the menstrual cycle. Family, we live in a society that it is explicitly built for a 24-hour linear clock. We are expected to wake up with the exact same energy baseline, the exact same cognitive sharpness, and the exact same social capacity every single day. But that 24-hour circadian rhythm model is a testosterone dominant paradigm. For anyone with a cycling neuroendocrine system, your biology does not reset overnight. Your body operates on an Infradian rhythm, a dynamic, roughly 28 to 35-day macro matrix where your hormones, your brain chemistry, your metabolic rate, and your immune systems shift in predictable, beautifully orchestrated ways. When we try to force a cyclical body into a rigid, linear lifestyle, we create profound internal friction. We blame ourselves for feeling exhausted. We paths of least resistance our way into burnout, and we treat our shifting moods as a psychological defect. But I am drawing a hard line today. Your fluctuations are not a pathology. They are your evolutionary blueprint. Knowledge is power, and educating yourself will always be your absolute best resource. Today, we are breaking down the 4 distinct inner seasons of your cycle, what they mean at a cellular level, and exactly how to use them to your absolute biological advantage. Now, to center our minds, we like to kick off each episode with the I am power statement, with I representing inspiration, A representing affirmations, and M representing manifestations. And the I am power statement for today is I am completely freed from the illusion of linear perfection. I honor the shifting landscape of my physiology. I command the distinct power of my inner seasons, and I trust my body's biological rhythm as my ultimate competitive advantage. Now, before we dive in, we are going to take a good old sip of our cramp elixir, cut to our first commercial break, and we will be right back with you. Tired of clunky remote recordings? Level up with Riverside FM Pro. Get studio quality audio and video, effortless editing with powerful AI tools, and seamless live streaming and collaboration. Become a pro of Riverside.fm and unlock the full potential of your content. Sign up today and make your voice heard. Visit the link in the description of this episode to discover more. Now, back to the show. Welcome back from that commercial break. We hope that you enjoyed it. Now, let's map out the architecture of your internal landscape. We are breaking down the cycle into winter, spring, summer, and autumn. I want you to understand the exact hormonal markers to pay attention to, the best activities to prioritize, and the primary traps to avoid. Now, before we map these shifts, let's ground ourselves in where this framework actually comes from. The conceptual mapping of the four phases of the menstrual cycle as our inner seasons was pioneered and developed by Alexandra Pope and Janie Hugo Wurlitzer, the co-founders of Red School. They formalized this as a practice called Menstrual Cycle Awareness. Why is this a game changer for every single person listening to this show? Because when you understand your inner seasons, you stop treating your body like an unpredictable enemy. You shift from a state of constant resistance into a state of absolute strategic alignment. It provides you with a biological roadmap to optimize your work, your workouts, and your relationships based on the exact neurochemical and hormonal assets you have online at any given moment. Now let's go ahead and break down each season. We have the inner winter, which is your menstrual phase. That typically happens between days 1 and day 5. Now, the biomarker. This season begins on day 1 of your bleed. Mechanically, your estrogen and progesterone have plummeted to their absolute baseline, prompting the shedding of the endometrial lining. Your body is expending significant ATP, which is cellular energy, or local pelvic mechanics. Now think of this as a total systemic reset. Your baseline energy is pulled inward and downward. Now the best activities. This is your window of radical introspection, strategic auditing, and somatic reset. During this phase, the communication between your brain's left and right hemispheres is highly efficient, making it the ultimate time for deep intuitive processing, journaling, and high-level evaluation. Now, for your physical movement, honor the systemic down regulation. Focus exclusively on slow grounding practices like yin yoga or yoga nidra to down-regulate the sympathetic nervous system, release pelvic congestion, and preserve your vital energy. Now, what should you avoid during this season? Avoid high intensity interval training or HIIT, heavy powerlifting, and overscheduling back to back social commitments. Forcing your body into a high cortisol state when your baseline hormones are low is a fast track to neuroendocrine exhaustion. Protect your calendar fiercely right now. And then your nutritional infrastructure. Focus heavily on remineralization and blood building. This is the time to consume iron-rich foods, deep, dark leafy greens, seaweed, warm vegetable broths, and mineral-dense foods to replenish what is lost during your bleed. Now pair these with vitamin C to optimize absorption. Avoid cold, raw, or highly processed foods that strain your digestive fire when your body's energy is concentrated in the pelvic basin. Now moving forward to your inner spring, the follicular phase, which are days 6 through 12. Now the biomarker. Your bleed has concluded and the follicular stimulating hormone, your FSH, prompts your ovaries to mature new follicles, causing a steady, beautiful rise in estrogen. Now, the best activities. Estrogen acts as a natural neurostimulant. It increases synaptic plasticity, boosts dopamine and serotonin levels, and enhances your verbal memory. This is officially your season of ideation, brainstorming, initiating new projects, problem solving, and high level learning. Physically, your baseline vitality is rebounding. This is an ideal window to introduce progressive overload in your strength training, dynamic vinyasa flows, and light cardio. Now, what should you avoid? Do not let this sudden surge of springtime energy trick you into overcommitting. Avoid saying yes to long term projects or social obligations that your future self will not have the hormonal bandwidth to maintain. Now, avoid stagnation, both mentally and physically, and keep the energy moving. Now, your nutritional infrastructure. Your metabolism is slightly slower during this phase, but your body is highly insulin resistant. Focus on light, vibrant, and fermented foods like kimchi or sauerkraut, or even kombucha that directly support estrogen metabolism and gut health. Now lean into sprouted grains, raw salads, cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, and dense plant-based proteins like chickpeas. We have kale, we have hemp seeds. You have even bananas can provide protein, quinoa, beans, legumes, walnuts, or even cashews. Now let's talk about the inner summer, which is the ovulatory phase, which are days 13 through 15. Now the biomarker. Estrogen hits its absolute physiological peak, triggering a massive surge in your luteinizing hormone or your LH, which prompts the release of the egg. You also experience a brief potent spike in testosterone. Now, the best activities. This is your season of absolute magnetic communication, high stakes negotiation, public speaking, and deep community networking. The high levels of estrogen and testosterone maximize your confidence, verbal fluency, and physical stamina. Mechanically, your musculoskeletal system is at its peak athletic compatibility. Now, this is your optimal window for heavy lifting, running, high intensity workouts, and celebratory social gatherings. Now, what to avoid? Avoid isolation. If you wall yourself off during your inner summer, that high octane hormonal energy can turn inward, manifesting as intense restlessness, hyperactivity, or ungrounded anxiety. Use this expressive energy to connect. And then your nutritional infrastructure. You must support the liver's capacity to properly metabolize and clear the massive peak of estrogen so it doesn't pool in your tissue. Now flood your system with raw cruciferous vegetables, antioxidant-rich berries, anti-inflammatory citrus fruits, and an abundance of hydration paired with high-quality electrolytes. And then moving on to the inner autumn or your inner fall, which is your luteal phase, days 16 through 28. The biomarker. Post-ovulation, the ruptured follicle transforms into the corpus luteum, which begins pumping out progesterone. Progesterone is your calming, grounding, nesting hormone. And in the final week of this phase, if pregnancy does not occur, both estrogen and progesterone drop sharply. Now, the best activities. This is your administrative masterclass season. While your inner spring is for ideating, your inner fall is for executing and finishing. Progesterone sharpens your attention to detail, making this the perfect phase for editing, organizing spreadsheets, balancing accounts, clearing physical clutter, and setting fierce protective boundaries. Shift your movements away from explosive cardio and transition towards restorative flows, hatha yoga, low impact Pilates, or Tai Chi. Now, what to avoid? Avoid the urge to pick fights or overanalyze major life choices in the final days of this phase. When your hormone drops sharply right before your bleed, your brain's amygdala becomes hyperreactive. Recognize that sudden, highly critical thoughts are often just a chemical transition, not a lifestyle crisis. Now, do not make permanent decisions based on temporary premenstrual hormonal dips. And then your nutritional infrastructure. Your metabolic baseline actually speeds up here. Your body naturally burns roughly 100 to 300 more calories a day during your luteal phase. You need dense, complex, slow-burning carbohydrates to stabilize blood sugar and prevent intense sugar cravings. Now focus heavily on sweet potatoes, butternut squash, quinoa, magnesium-rich dark chocolate, and healthy fats like avocados and pumpkin seeds. Now let's take a moment and let all of this information sit in. We're going to go ahead and cut to our next commercial break, and we will be right back with you.
Periods got you down? Kick cramps to the curb with Pilates for periods. Our online program combines targeted Pilates, soothing yoga, calming meditation, and breathwork to help you manage your menstrual cycle naturally. Feel stronger, calmer, and more in control. Reclaim your comfort. Visit Pilates for Periods YouTube page, linked in the description of this episode, and start your journey to a more manageable cycle today. Now, back to the show.
Welcome back from that commercial break. We hope that you enjoyed it. Now, beautiful beings, while this 4-part seasonal matrix is your biological birthright, we have to talk about the modern disruptors that can throw your entire seasonal cycle out of alignment. Now, if your inner seasons feel like less of a gentle transition and more like a chaotic, unpredictable weather emergency, we have to look past the surface symptoms. We have to audit the underlying clinical disruptors hijacking your endocrine highway. Now let's look at the first major culprit, metabolic dysregulation and circulating insulin. When we experience constant blood sugar spikes due to a poor nutritional infrastructure, eating on the run, skipping meals, or leaning heavily on processed convenience foods, our pancreas responds by pumping out massive amounts of insulin. Now, here is the clinical connection. The chronic presence of elevated insulin actively interferes with the ovary's ability to synthesize hormones correctly. Now, high insulin acts in a chemical wall. It can suppress ovulation entirely. If you don't ovulate, you get trapped in an extended, agonizing, inflamed high estrogen interval. Now, this is why so many people experience weeks of severe premenstrual symptoms, heavy bleeding, and irregular cycles instead of a smooth transition into their bleed. Now, your metabolic health is your reproductive health. Remember that. Your metabolic health is your reproductive health. Now, the second disruptor we must pull into the light is what I like to call the cortisol blockade. Now, in behavioral psychology, we track how chronic psychological stress acts as a direct primal survival mechanism. But if your brain perceives that you are in a continuous state of danger, whether that danger is a toxic corporate work environment, a lack of somatic rest, relational trauma, or high allostatic load, your nervous system doesn't differentiate. Your hypothalamus downregulates the production of GnRH, which is gonadotropin releasing hormone. Now, your body will happily delay or skip ovulation entirely to ensure you do not bring a potential pregnancy into what is perceived as a war zone. And remember the cellular domino effect. No ovulation means no corpus luteum, which means you produce zero protective progesterone. This leaves you completely exposed to unchecked aggressive estrogen dominance, leading to the exact mood crashes and physical pain we are trying to eliminate. And then finally, the third option we have to address is your circadian misalignment. Our master clock and endocrine glands are profoundly intrinsically tied to light exposure. Staring at blue screens late into the night, sleeping in rooms with ambient street light leakage, or completely missing every morning sunlight directly disrupts your pineal glands' secretion of melatonin. Because your sleep-wake cycles are intricately linked with your reproductive pulses, circadian disruption directly destabilizes the luteinizing hormone surge. It throws off the precise timing of your inner summer and triggers an ovulatory cycles. Now let's ground this reality in hard clinical data because your lifestyle choices are not a luxury. They are targeted clinical intervention. Now researchers over time have evaluated how our environments reshape our biology, concluding that infradian rhythm misalignment driven by chronic psychosocial stress and circadian disruption is associated with a 50% higher incidence of ovulatory dysfunction and severe premenstrual dysphoric symptoms. Now, let that statistic truly set into your spirit. Half of the cyclical suffering, half of the severe mood disruptions, and half of the ovulation struggles we experience are not because our bodies are broken. It is a direct symptom of a resilient, cyclical body trying to survive a chronically stressful linear environment. So, beautiful beings, knowing what we know about the systemic disruptors hijacking our rhythm, the ultimate question remains: how do we actually reclaim our biological authority? How do we stop playing defense and start living in absolute unapologetic alignment with our inner seasons? First, let's draw a hard line in the sand. We refuse to settle for synthetic hormonal patches or chemical band-aids that simply flatline our endogenous production, mask the underlying root causes, and deny us our seasons entirely. Now, your natural cycle isn't a design flaw to be turned off. It is a vital sign. Instead of suppressing it, we choose to build an active, intentional, daily, holistic infrastructure. We treat our lifestyle as our primary clinical intervention. The first pillar of this infrastructure is implementing what I call a cycle sync calendar. I want you to open your calendar right now and stop looking at it as a static to-do list. Start treating your schedule as a dynamic biofeedback tool. When you look at your upcoming month, pull out your cycle tracking data. If you have the operational flexibility in your professional or personal life, batch your high-stake task accordingly. Schedule your public speaking engagements, complex negotiations, intensive podcast recordings, and major social networking events during the energetic peaks of your inner spring and your inner summer, when your estrogen and testosterone are working for you. Conversely, you must learn to guard your calendar like a protective fortress during your inner fall and your inner winter. When you are moving through your luteal phase and your bleed, do not schedule back-to-back social events or high-pressure public appearances. Instead, intentionally pivot those days towards deep administrative tasks, back-end editing, strategic auditing, reflective writing, and restorative nights at home. By engineering your schedule to mirror your biological capacity, you eliminate the cognitive function that leads to chronic corporate burnout. You stop forcing a winter body to perform tasks in a summer landscape. Now, the second pillar requires a radical reevaluation of your fitness regimen. Phase-specific somatic movement. Family, we have to stop trying to sweat out our fatigue. The mainstream fitness industry has conditioned us to believe that if we are not pushing ourselves to maximum exhaustion with high-intensity interval training or heavy powerlifting 5 days a week, we aren't working hard enough. But forcing your body through an aggressive high cortisol workout when your baseline hormones are at rock bottom is a direct receipt for adrenal exhaustion and tissue inflammation. Now you must learn to match your physical output to your current internal hormonal environment. If you are tracking your symptoms and realize you have entered your interwinter, honor that systemic downregulation. Give yourself permission to drop the heavy weights, step away from the treadmill, and step onto your yoga mat. Practice slow flows, grounding in yin yoga, or deep neural resetting yoga nidra to downregulate your sympathetic nervous system, open up the pelvis, and ease vascular stagnation. Then as your estrogen rebounds into your inner spring and peaks alongside testosterone in your inner summer, leverage the natural physiological surge. This is your biological window to challenge your muscular frame. Hit your heavy lift PRs, go for that high intensity run, and crush your metabolic conditioning. Now, moving with your seasons dramatically reduces your risk of musculoskeletal injury, minimizes exercise-induced cortisol spikes, and actively supports a balanced, healthy endocrine feedback loop. Now, finally, the third foundational pillar is targeted nutritional fueling. Let's make a pact today to stop eating the exact same way every single day. Your metabolic rate and your insulin sensitivity shift with your seasons, which means your fuel must shift too. It is time to treat your kitchen as your pharmacy. Farm, FAR, then C. During your follicular phase, as your body builds new tissue, prioritize light proteins and healthy insulin synthesizing fats to maintain blood sugar stability. Now, when you transition into your short, high energy ovulatory summer and flood your system with liver-supporting raw brassicas and cruciferous vegetables like cabbage, kale, Brussels sprouts, or broccoli. Now, these foods contain crucial compounds like endo-3 carbinol that actively assist your liver in breaking down and safely clearing the massive peak of circulating estrogen, preventing it from pooling in your tissues. Now, as you slide into the metabolic shift of your luteal fall, remember that your baseline caloric needs naturally increase. Don't fight the hunger. Feed it intelligently. Lean heavily into dense, complex, slow burning carbohydrates like sweet potatoes, purple potatoes, and mineral dense grains to keep your glucose stable and completely neutralize those late night sugar cravings. And finally, when your inner winter arrives and your bleed begins, shift entirely towards warm, deep, comforting, remineralizing, and iron dense broths, stews, and mineral soups. This infuses your body with the exact amino acids and micronutrients it needs to rebuild the blood volume and support your pelvic mechanics. When you build this three-part infrastructure, syncing your calendar, your movement, and your nutrition, you stop fighting against your own biology. You stop viewing your cycle as an inconvenience and you begin to master it as your ultimate psychological and physiological competitive advantage. Now, as we let all of that valuable information sit in, we are going to cut to our final commercial break and we will be right back with you.
Fly. Do you want? Yeah. Fly. Wanna fly? Do you wanna fly? Wanna fly? Let go of all the things that hold you down. Used to be so easy.
Now, back to the show.
Welcome back from that commercial break. We hope that you enjoyed it. Now, family, as we bring this masterclass to a close and prepare to step off the mat and back into our week, let's take a collective grounding breath together. If you need to do it again, just take an inhale through your nostrils and exhale out of our mouths. Now, let's truly integrate the biological roadmap we just mapped out today. Your menstrual cycle is not an inconvenience. It is not a design flaw, and it is absolutely not a liability to your productivity. Your cycle is an extraordinary built-in biological compass designed to optimize your cognitive architecture, maximize your physical vitality, and deepen your emotional and psychological wisdom. Now let's recap the 4 pillars of your internal ecosystem so you can carry them into your week with absolute clarity. Your inner winter, the time of the bleed when your hormones hit a total systemic reset. This is your cue of radical introspection, strategic auditing, and somatic rest. Stop pushing through the fatigue. Honor the downregulation with grounding slow flows of deep yoga nidra and rebuild your baseline with iron-dense, warming nutritional infrastructures. Your inner spring, the pre-ovulatory rise of estrogen. This is your biological green light. Your brain is structurally primed for rapid ideation, creative brainstorming, and high level problem solving. This is the window to step up your physical training and say yes to new intellectual horizons. Next, you have your inner summer, peak estrogen and testosterone colliding at ovulation to give you your ultimate communicative advantage. This is your season of magnetic expression, high stakes negotiation, and peak athletic performance. Capitalize on the social and physical stamina and feed your liver the raw cruciferous infrastructure it needs to clear that hormonal peak safely. And then your inner fall, the high progesterone luteal phase. This is your administrative powerhouse. Use this hyper-focused boundary-setting energy to organize, edit, and complete tasks. But remember, as your hormones drop right before your bleed, treat your critical thoughts as a passing chemical transition. Never make a permanent lifestyle decision on a temporary premenstrual dip. Give your body the complex carbohydrates it is actively asking for you to keep your blood sugar locked in and stable. Now, when you stop fighting your seasons, you step out of the exhausting trap of the lunar 24-hour clock and you step into your biological authority. Knowledge is power, beautiful beings, but applied knowledge is sovereign execution. Now, family, as we close out the biological roadmap today, remember this: your cycle is not an inconvenience. It is an extraordinary built-in compass designed to optimize your cognitive performance, maximize your physical vitality, and deepen your emotional wisdom. Stop fighting your seasons. Lean into them. Now, if this episode upgraded your health literacy, gave you validation you needed to honor your body's rhythm, and reminded you that your pain is never something to just push through, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, leave us a like or a 5-star review, and text this episode to a friend, a sister, or a colleague who is tired of burning themselves out on a linear schedule. Now, feel free to share this with someone who you feel like can resonate with this episode or our mission. Also, subscribe to our Pilates for Periods YouTube channel, join our newsletter, and stay deeply connected to all of the resources, evidence-based tips, and structural health education we drop every single week. This information is located in the description of this episode. Now, if you have any questions or concerns, we are still accepting listeners' mail, so feel free to comment onto this episode. Or if you would like a more intimate or private conversation, feel free to email us at contact@kickcrampsass.org. Now let's start an open dialogue right now in the community space. Drop a comment below the video or on our community board. Which inner season do you find the absolute hardest to honor in your current routine? And what is one small boundary you can set this week to protect it? Now, we are so deeply honored to walk this path of total biological authority, health equity, and radical body sovereignty with you every single week. Tune in, look data forward, and never settle for managed pain. Stay deeply mindful, protect your inner peace, and keep moving. We manifest a positive, productive, and peaceful remainder of your Menstruation Monday, your week ahead, and your menstrual journey ahead. And we'll be speaking to you during our next episode on next Menstruation Monday. And we are so grateful and we are sending gratitude to all of you for tuning in today. And we will see you on next Menstruation Monday. Peace.